My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah.
Good morning, Prot Paly here. We're going to talk about heroic Mistress Sass'ine and the Tomb of Sargeras. This is an uncomplicated, complicatedly, uncomplicated fight, only for the sheer fact that you're going to have to move a lot. And you're going to have to move a lot in your raid group because you're a paladin, and you're going to be doing a lot of AoE, and that AoE is going to draw adds to you. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, though. First things first, trinkets I'm running is Dark Moon Deck Immortality. Because Mistress Sass'ine does hit pretty damn hard, and she hits really hard, especially when you're having to move, and when you move, you may turn your back to her, and I know that the trinket's not going to help in that aspect, but, you know, there's a lot of movement, and it throws your healers off guard, because they're moving, and they might not be able to heal, especially if you have a long cast time. So I'm running, you know, an armor trinket, but on top of that, I'm running Crystalline Scorpion, because there's a lot of ads, and so I want to get that ad-based AoE damage out there. And so I'm kind of running this hybrid class right here for this specific fight. I did start off running full DPS build, and it was no big deal for the fight. However, we had a lot of raid members taking excess damage, and so I just tried to reduce the amount of damage that I was taking as a tank, just to kind of ease up on the healer so they can focus on everybody else, keeping them alive. You can run a full DPS build on this fight and be just fine. Outside of tanking the boss, there's not a lot of damage that goes on. So this is a three-phase fight, and in the specific phases, there's different actions for your raid members, but for you as a tank, it's the exact same the entire damn fight. What you're going to notice here is that in phase 1, ads are going to spawn on your raid members. They have to step on jellyfish, the ads drop off, you glump them all together, and then you AoE them down. When you AoE them down, they drop a green puddle on the ground. That green puddle then has to be in between you and the tornadoes, which will then soak up the tornadoes, and that'll mitigate the damage of the tornadoes, because they do a heck of a lot of damage. You can save a raid member who's about to get hit by tornado by bopping them, but really there's no reason to ever get hit by tornadoes. Also, if you noticed, as the tornadoes were going out, there was these blue circles that landed on the ground. If you stand inside those blue circles, you will be stunned, and you will most likely die and therefore wipe your raid group. If you are the off tank and you are about to taunt Mistress Sass'ine and you step inside a blue circle and it stuns you, Burden of Pain will go out, Burden of Pain will AoE your raid group, and once again, congratulations, you have wiped your raid group, so don't ever stand inside that circle. What also comes out during phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 is this Hydra shot, and this Hydra shot needs to be soaked by at least 4 people, and a lot of times the tank's involved in that soaking, but as a tank you're standing really close to the boss, and if your raid group doesn't spread out nicely, you're going to get hit by 2 Hydra shots, which is going to stun you, which is going to kill you, which is going to wipe your raid group. So my recommendation, don't ever soak a Hydra shot as a tank. You have plenty of raid members to do that, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. If your raid group requires you to soak it as a tank, if you have Burden of Pain, do not, under any circumstance, soak Hydra Shot, because it's physical damage and it once again will AoE your group, and that's a lot of damage that goes out. So let's talk about Burden of Pain. Burden of Pain is a cast that Mistress Sass'ine is going to put on the tank who is actively tanking her. Now, if you take any damage after Burden of Pain is released, you'll do this AoE lightning to the group that actually will damage every raid member. You can, as the off-tank, taunt in the middle of that Burden of Pain cast bar and pull Mistress Sass'ine before she starts to do Burden of Pain AoE damage to the group. She has already selected the tank that was tanking her, and so therefore taunting in the middle of that cast bar will not affect it by any means. In fact, it will actually look better for you if you can taunt midway through that cast bar. In phase 2, there's some nice little bars that come across the screen, much like, if you recall, Mythic, not Spellblade, sorry, Mythic Star Augur, where the I-beam shot across the platform. It's the very same thing here, just don't stand in it, does a lot of damage. Now, when that comes out, you're going to have purple circles on the ground. You don't want to soak them right away, you want to soak them just before that wave comes off across the screen, because immediately after the wave, you're going to have Devouring Maw. Devouring Maw is where you feed the whale shark. Now in feeding the whale shark, it's important to get 5 people there as fast as possible, and that's why just before the wave's coming out, I will call for soak. Wave comes out, we move to the edge, and then I call for immediate feed the shark, so that way we stop getting forced backwards, which is the terrible part of that fight. When you come into phase 3 is all about lusting right away, and you start burning the boss as hard as possible, because this is the softened rage point in time. There's no more jellyfish in order to take the ads off your raid members, so really it's just a race to the finish line. Nothing changes except the fact that we get tornadoes back, and you don't have to feed the whale shark anymore. So I guess we get a flip-flop in abilities. But in all actuality, it winds up being the exact same thing every single time for the tank. Now, in order for me to reduce the amount of damage that I was taking in phase 3, which is the hectic phase for our raid members, because once those murlocs are out there just throwing damage out to our raid members, because you can't get them off their backs, I did use an armor pot at the very end of this fight in order to, once again, try to mitigate the damage to keep us alive for our first kill on Heroic. From here on out, I will most likely be running a Seraphim full DPS build, because our raid members, you know, they figured out the fight. In terms of this fight, there's not a lot of things that change as a tank. If you're tanking the boss, it's like 90% physical damage. That's why I was running Dark Moon deck. But if you're tanking the ads, you know, it's like a 50-50 split between, you know, frost and magic shadow damage ish. You don't really take any damage when tanking the ads, so don't panic in that aspect. And now let's talk about actually tanking the ads. The main strat here is to tank the ads away from the boss so the boss doesn't get kited around the room. However, you'll see in our group we're running a Demon Hunter and we're running a Paladin. Both of us have huge AoE cleave, and therefore a lot of times the ads follow the tank who is tanking the boss. It doesn't always happen, but it happens quite a bit in terms of, we just said, just tank them on the boss, and as soon as they die, we'll just slowly kite around the room in a nice circle, or as nice of a circle as we can do with all the mechanics that are going on. And that's what I really recommend for your raid group, is that you just tank them on the boss and then just move the boss as it goes. The green stuff's going to drop on the ground. It won't kill your raid members unless they completely blank out tunnel and stand there for, I don't know, a good 3-4 seconds. As soon as you see it as a tank, just start moving around, and you'll easily be able to overcome this weird glitchy-esque mechanic. It's not a glitch, but it winds up being that way because of the AoE heavy cleave. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward fight. As a tank, really all you're doing is taunting on Burden of Pain, and if you have Burden of Pain, you're tanking the ads. So hopefully this video helped you out a little bit here. I wish you all the best of luck on Mr. Sass'zine, and I'll catch you all in the next videos. Have fun getting loot.